hate on the podcast bros either. I drink liquid death water whenever I have the chance at Whole Foods, so I look cool. I take all the supplements that are advertised to me on podcast. I do it. All the men that I date are fucking podcast bros. I do it too.
Welcome to the first third pilot of Always Been Famous.
Yep.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chloe.
And I'm Jackson.
And we're going to start with just introducing ourselves, providing a little bit of information on who we are and why we're here and how we met. And then we're going to get into sort of the premise of this podcast and also provide some practical advice around spring wellness, and then also provide some comments on just cultural happenings as of late. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I guess we can start our little intro. Like, you want to do the telling them how we got here?
Well, just say a little bit about yourself.
You know, I've really thought all day about how I want to introduce myself, and I'm like, what kind of introduction do I want to do? Do I want like corporate cocktail introduction? Boring. No. Do I want like, I don't know how I should introduce myself to the audience. I'm such a multifaceted person.
You are.
So I just don't. What do you think they should know about me?
What would be your Real Housewives tagline?
You know, my Real Housewives tagline would be, I may be fat, but I will never be the bigger person. Even though I don't even believe in that. I'm like consistently the bigger person in my problems, but I think it's a catty tagline that should be used somewhere.
We should just put it.
Just put it.
Edit it below.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that all you want to say for now? Do you want to remain mysterious?
You know, it's not that I want to be mysterious. It's just that I don't want to bore the audience to death with the details of my
we should just
corporate lifestyle.
Fun facts that are like great, for people to know about us. That's like important. Yeah, so I'm Chloe and I am here with Jackson, and I guess if he's never the bigger person, that makes me the bigger person, which is great. I guess some things to know about me. One is that I'm a heliophobe. I identify as that. I really spend a lot of time avoiding the sun. Before I leave this building, I will be slathering sunscreen all over my neck, all over my face, even though technically I applied it before I got here. And I will probably be putting on like a sun visor or something like that. So yeah, I'm very much a heliophobe, and you think, oh, like she's just saying this isn't real. A lot of people say this. There are a lot of like performative sunscreen addicts out there these days in the wellness and skincare space, but no, it's real, and I've never met anybody that has this more intensely than me. So, or seen
I haven't
it,
either.
other than maybe some girls in Korea or something. So that's one thing about me. Another thing about me off the top of my head, maybe that you could know, is I'm definitely like a moobs enthusiast. I was walking to the studio actually, and a guy walked, because it's moob season and it's spring, like everyone's coming out, with their man boobs. And and this guy had like really good ones.
I'm trying to keep mine put up.
His were out and they were great. I was like, whoa, it's like,
oh my god, you're looking at that cleavage.
I was like... So yeah, those are some facts about me. Another thing,
had no idea he was dressing for the female gaze.
No idea. What's another fact? I think that's like the main
I can, oh my god, like a speeding dating introduction. I'm like, hi, I'm Jackson. I like movies, alternative music, books, candles, wine, an occasional cigarette.
And also, we're smart people.
Are we?
We think we are.
See, I feel like when I say
we think we're book smart, but I mean, I'm not.
When I say that I'm smart, I like feel like I immediately just look dumb. Because then I feel like I'm setting myself up to look dumb.
It's true. That's true. I mean, I'm directionally challenged. Like, I end up in Brooklyn or Queens. Those are just some things. You guys will learn more as we go. But basically, we both like came into a more creative space from really like boring corporate and academia, and we won't supply the details. That would be probably irritating.
Yeah.
So yeah, the more important thing is how we met, and we met at acting class
It was kind of a kismet moment.
It was just a moment of destiny in January, and this year was very intentional for me. I don't know about you, Jackson, but it was like this very intentional
Yeah.
start to the year, which I don't often experience.
I have never felt like such an intense drive for a year like I have this year. And I told you it all started on New Year's Eve when I got back. I'd flown home for a couple weeks. I got back, was just hanging out with myself on New Year's Eve. And I was watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. So, and we'll get in later to like why we named the show, what we named it, and what our like kind of motivations and goals with it are. But for now, I'd say that's how I ended up. But back to our story.
Yeah, so we met at an acting class in January. And we were both there as newbies. We were so shy. We weren't sure what we were getting into. I had kind of, I don't know about you, but definitely the thoughts of like, why, who am I to be here right now? Like, why, what am I doing?
I was thinking, like,
Am
I
I
was
too
kind of
old?
scanning the room and I was like looking at the other people and I was like, oh my God, like these people think they have it. Well, then I definitely have it. If they,
Yeah.
you know.
And yeah, I mean, and it was, we were about to do a screen test. We turned to each other and we were like, why are you here?
The screen test. I think it's so funny they called that a screen
It
test.
was it was 3 words.
It was
guys,
it was a 40-year-old man with his iPhone
yeah,
recording us holding a Pringles can going, delicious.
But that's what it was.
That's what it was. That was our
degrading cattle call where we met.
Yeah, sitting on the bench outside talking about how we were gonna say, that's delicious.
Yeah, and we were both nervous. We were like,
we were genuinely nervous.
How are you gonna deliver the line? I was like, well, I don't want to sound too inauthentic or fake.
Well, I told her, I was like, it's just, I'm struggling with these lines a lot because I just don't identify with the material. I'm not
we're not here like, for Pringle
consumer.
Yeah.
So we were really struggling with those lines. You know, we take our acting very serious.
Yeah, we were really overthinking. We were thinking. Oh,
and guys, they had a prop. They had props. They gave you a Pringles can.
And so yeah, it was pretty clear that we were both spiraling, and so we
over 3 words.
Over 3 words. Can. We practiced our lines to each other. We asked each other why we were there, and then we both revealed that like we're kind of what would the word be?
I mean, would you say? I don't know that I want to say ego-driven. I would just say that we both
dreamers. We're dreamers.
We're dreamers. You know, like I'm a Pisces. My head is like either up my ass or in the clouds, and
we just were at a breaking point of wanting something more, and we both had our own motivations for acting. Like obviously if somebody's going into acting, there's like a level of stepping into, I mean, the public eye in a way of like you're going to put yourself on display in a particular way, and you know that you're doing that, and you know that there's like an objectification that comes with that, but it's also a self-actualization. And I think that we were at a place where we knew we were like going to be seen. And then, I mean, you were very frank about it. You were like, I'm here to experience fame.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I just don't bullshit. And tell me if you agree or disagree. I was thinking about this the other day. I personally think that in some ways the podcast is harder than the acting, because if someone doesn't like you in like acting, it's like they don't like your character or they just don't like your acting technique. But on the podcast, if someone doesn't like you, they just don't fucking like you.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I think the podcast is a lot more vulnerable, but I think that can be like really good for building rapport with an audience.
Yeah, and I was kind of in this crazy wellness podcast spiral kind of over the holidays. I was alone. It was prior to all of those classes, and so I was just consuming a lot of podcasts, a lot of Dear Media content, some things in the comedy space, and I got to the point where I was like, fuck, I just want to make a show. I just want to have a place where we can vent, we can talk, we can share, we can build a community.
And I had never considered like podcast,
but I knew once they got you in the room, you'd be
I'd had people approach me before telling me like, oh, you should start a podcast, or like, oh, we should start a podcast, But the way that Chloe approached it was very different. The way that Chloe approached me was she was like, hey, I booked a podcast studio for this day. Be there.
Yeah, I did.
Like there was really like very minimal room to get out of the obligation. So here we are, and we're happy to be here.
We've fired 2 co-hosts at this point.
Yeah, we've been through
we are here, and I think also what we were questioning in that moment when we met, and as we've recorded episodes and got to a sense of really what our angle is like, what is our contribution? What is our place in the cultural discourse in a position that's healthy for us, that doesn't, garner too much comparison, but also just kind of like, because we're just lost in this sea of content and this sea of people on social media. It's easy to become very depressed with it, but also
and we're both chronically online.
Yeah, well, and it's such a rapid, in very different ways, but it's also such a rapid progression that at this point in our lives, we figured, okay, we need to like hop with that tide, but also do so from the healthiest place that we have ever, been able to. And I think that the thing that really enabled us to get to that place is kind of this deep realization, because there's always kind of quotes and whatever toxic positivity around the idea that you are the only version of you will ever be, but then it feels different when you allow that statement to really sink in and you feel it and you internalize it. So I think that this year we finally had done that, and then like having a sense of self-love and mission through that. Like I can say going into this year, I'm at a place of like, despite any of the falters that have happened, despite the ways I've had to like monitor my own dialogue, there is just this place of self-love where it's coming from, just for like the unique things that I personally bring. And I think you're in the same place, and it's been like a battle to get to this point.
It is. I used to be such an extrovert, and I'm trying to get back to it. I don't know like where along the path that just got beat out of me.
Yeah.
But I'm done with the introvert life. Like I'm ready to be back out there. Oscar Wilde says, just be you, everyone else is taken. He put it more eloquent than that. But I agree with that quote a lot. And I'm just going to go ahead and give everyone a warning. Like, you're going to probably hear a lot of quotes in this episode, because we are very, like, the content you see that's, like, inspirational that you probably just, like, scroll past and write off as cliche, we eat that shit up.
No, we love that shit.
We eat that shit up. Like, I literally will see, like, angel numbers on my microwave and feel inspired. And I'm like, I can't help it that no one else feels this way because of this.
I know. Well, we'll get into this a little bit in a second with kind of this existentialist. It's like an armchair, soft sort of existentialism behind a lot of the ideas that we've been mulling over.
Yeah.
But it's like this idea of everything being quite absurd, and then creating your own particular, like, I guess, assuming the responsibility to create your own particular meaning through that. And yeah, I think also one of our goals is just to tap back into that like childlike state of wonder where you can create from.
Yeah.
Like, Jackson, when you mentioned that you used to be such an extrovert in those early years, it's like that's before you were tarnished by other things and like influences. And
it's before I like put all these restrictions on myself. And it's like, I thought that everyone else was putting the restrictions on me, but it turns out that's not the case. And it was like, I was my own worst enemy all along.
Yeah. No, and it's so true. I don't think all children are necessarily extremely extroverted, but a lot of them are. And like, I remember for me, I would just go on stages and like sing High School Musical.
Oh, same. I was in like every school play. I was like anything that you could like get me on. I would go to like they had like a Christmas tree thing where I'm from that it was like televised, and my mom would go and take us, and I'd be like, you got to get me in. Like, they're making cookies on the news. Like, I got to be on that segment.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no thought when you're a child of you can't do this or you won't do this.
And there's also, I think, and I mean, obviously it's different because there are a lot of kids that like get the shit picked out of them at school.
Yeah.
But for me, at least, when I was younger, I was never worrying like, oh my God, what if someone thinks I like sound dumb or look fat or like I'm like my clothes don't. Like, I never thought about that.
Yeah, you would never like count yourself out of something. And I think also it's like kids are selfish in the good way, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there is mind blindness. They have to build awareness. But it's also this idea of like a positive, selfish attitude in a way where, you know, you are able to put yourself first and fully care for yourself in the sense that you're all that you have, while not being too narcissistically like wrapped up in yourself. And I think that's like such a good balance to tap into when you're doing anything where you are like, I guess, putting yourself on display or stepping out into like creation.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was heavy. That was heavy, but really, you guys, like the purpose of this podcast and like why we're here is we want to provide like a window of meaning for all this confusion that Gen Z is experiencing. I mean, obviously people outside of that bracket are welcome to tune in as well too, because a lot of the feelings and sentiments are the same, but it's this idea that we're in this world that's more connected than ever. Obviously we're more alone than ever, and it's something that is, but at the same time there's also all of these creative possibilities for different career paths, lives beyond a traditional corporate structure that you would imagine. So our goal is like through conversations with others, guests that are coming on real soon that we're really excited about, through cultural commentary, through transparency and vulnerability, just to really tap into this and inspire people to live with like a great sense of authenticity and maybe question some of the like mundane routines that they've taken on, I would say.
Yeah. I would definitely agree.
Do you have anything to add to our angle, Jackson?
I think the best thing to add to our angle is to explain our title.
Yes, I will let you.
So our show is called Always Been Famous, and I mean, I guess the name was sourced from me.
It was.
So it's from a Lady Gaga quote back when she first blew up, and she says, "I've always been famous. It's just no one knew it yet." And I have had that quote in my mind for like years. So we were trying to figure out like, what do we want to call our show? What are our motivations? What are we wanting? And we were throwing around some different ideas. I really don't even remember what else we were throwing around. We were really struggling for a name.
Yeah, we wanted something snappy that people feel like they should know, like should be in existence, but isn't yet. There are close variations, but we couldn't find another podcast with this exact name yet.
So we went with this, and I mean, I'll say for me, like in my head, I have always been famous. Like I've always treated myself like I'm just already living the life that I want. Sometimes it's gotten me in some situations, but for the most part, like I really do think that stepping into the life that you want to see yourself live can take you so far. Yeah. So it's just like even letting yourself, like I feel like so many people, if they were, you know, thinking about that and they maybe are in like whatever type of situation that's putting restrictions on them or holding them back, they're like, oh, I can't dream that big. I can't think like that. I'm here to tell you, you absolutely fucking can.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like definitely a space to allow those possibilities and break through some of that self-censorship that people are doing that's stopping them from even thinking the thought, which is going to precede any action that they're going to take. And also this idea that you already have everything that you need. Yeah. You already have it. You're already there. You just have to do the thing. So that's really also, I think, what motivates this is that like you already have the essence of whatever it's going to take as an individual.
So yeah, the title really is to just tie back into the whole message of you already have everything you want. You just have to claim it and go get it. Yeah. So thank you, Stephanie Germanata. My girl.
Which we've been back on the Star is Born kick lately.
A Star is Born is so good. I love that movie. I rewatched it back in January or like early February, and it's so good. The soundtrack is so good. Do you know that Shallow is like one of the most awarded songs of all time?
Really? I can see why.
It's got like an insane amount of awards. Like I can't remember if it's got like 400 awards or like 180 awards or like it's one of the most awarded songs like ever.
I love listening to it and like imagining emo shit and just I remember the first time I saw it in theaters and it was just like I was like talking to some guy who was like actually really toxic. He kept talking about like weird mental health problems, and I was just like thinking about him and like being emo. And
have you seen like the Barbara Streisand version or the Judy Garland version?
I've seen the Babs version.
Yeah, I've seen Babs. I've not seen Judy's. I like Barbara Streisand's version a lot, but I prefer Lady Gaga's, and I'm sure that's probably just a generational thing.
I prefer it too, weirdly.
Like, I think if I had like watched the original and when it came out and it had like sat with me for decades until the other one came out, I'd feel different, but this is the one I started with. So what's next on our little docket?
What's next is our armchair existentialism emo moment before we get into some of the petty cultural shit that we have beneath that. So we have a little disclaimer, you guys, for our podcast that we're just going to put up now in case anybody is watching who is a potential guest or wants to engage with us in a further capacity. So... and essentially, the disclaimer is as follows. So basically, it is our genuine goal with this podcast to share perspectives without a sense of superiority or really or thereby like weaponizing therapeutic language to paint a certain picture of ourselves as perfect or as like holier than thou or as morally pure, I would say, as we've seen with a lot of kind of cultural figures, podcasters. I'm not going to name names, but if people have been like reading up on some of the
don't expect that at us.
Things,
we're messy.
It's some of the things about certain people, certain protocols, certain things like that in, you know, the wellness space. Yeah, it like that sort of thing we really want to avoid. Like, we want to show up as completely as ourselves, and we'll reevaluate, you know.
Yeah, we will. Maybe we'll have to make a new disclaimer and be like, okay, so
now we're gonna be fake.
It went to our heads.
Now we're gonna be fucking sellouts.
Get 10 views, it went to our heads.
So we're not going to do that, you guys. Unfortunately, we're oversharers. We are used to doing this. I don't know how to like be cool and play games, so we're not going to play any games with you as an audience. And then also what we ask of both ourselves, our guests, our viewers, as a contract with ourselves, and then for you guys also to assume with yourself, is that we're just going to ask something very simple, and it's to leave your ego and your need for approval at the door and show up as yourself fully, even if that's sarcastically, humorously, whatever that means for you. We really want to cultivate a space where you are stepping into the ultimate you-ness that you need, because you need that for success. Like, if you're trying to emulate someone else, or you're trying to win some fucking beauty competition or any other competition besides the you-ness competition, you're gonna lose. So we want to prepare you to win because we're winners.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna be winners, maybe.
Maybe someday.
Not at the moment. I don't know what we've won yet.
Don't jinx us, Jackson. Okay. So I want to share a little quote from Rick Rubin. I read The Creative Act at the beginning of the year, and look, who knows if Rick Rubin is fake, but we know that he's accomplished great things and that he has a lot of really great advice that stands irrespective of everything else about him. Any sort of like idol worship around any kind of celebrity does create doubts. You just don't know. You don't know the reality. You don't know the truth. We're not going to make any assumptions about this man. Yeah. But I do know that there is a lot of great creative advice in that book, and you can't deny his success in that area. So anyway, one quote from it is, "The act of creation is an attempt to enter a mysterious realm, a longing to transcend, and what we create allows us to share glimpses into an inner landscape, one that is beyond our understanding. Art is our portal to the unseen world." And I actually wanted to connect this quote back to these ideas of manifesting, of creating your ideal existence. Obviously, action has to back that up, but these are quote-unquote mystical realms, and like the unknown of existence is as well. But yeah, go ahead, Jackson.
Do you think that life imitates art or art imitates life?
I think both.
I think both too. I think also, if we're going to talk about existentialism, I just have to share, and everyone probably knows it at this point, but like the infamous Sylvia Plath fig tree analogy. Have you read The Bell Jar?
But why don't you elaborate for
Yeah,
the
so
audience?
in this passage of The Bell Jar, it's probably in the first like third of the book. I mean, I wouldn't know. I've only read it a few times, but the book. And so she's sitting at the base of this fig tree. She's having this big existential moment. And she's like, I see the figs branching out before me. I was onto this way before it came on TikTok, so don't even like come at
Oh
me.
wow, she's making the rounds on TikTok.
Yeah, I know. And like I have mixed feelings about it.
Okay.
Because, you know, I wanted to gatekeep her as much as one can gatekeep
Sylvia
Sylvia Plath. But
what a pick me.
I know I suck. But like the figs are branching out before her, and she's like, one is a brilliant English professor, one is like, you know, an editor in chief in a magazine, and like I can't pick one fig without losing all the other figs. And that stuck with me for so many years. And then I actually read something this week where someone was like adding on to it, and they're like, the figs grow back. You pick one, they die, but the next year the figs come back. And that just like completely flipped my whole perspective on that passage that's like guided my life for so long.
Yeah.
And I don't think it discounts what Sylvia wrote at all.
No.
But I think it's just a fresh perspective that's like, yes, I can make a decision, but I can always, like, it's my life. I can always like course correct.
Yeah, it's never too late to reroute.
And that's exactly what we're doing with this podcast. This is a big course correction for our lives.
Absolutely. And I think that the initial quote with the fig tree, it definitely relates to the idea of like where you're allocating your time.
Yeah, like in college, that really, because you know, in college, like you pick a major, you're stuck with it. You like pretty much get in like one friend group and you stay with it. I like love my college friend group though. So, but I think that more so is a heavier quote in your younger adolescence.
Yeah.
Because when you're older, I think your options, for most people, I feel like your options open up a lot more after college or after you're just like done with school. You've got a lot more autonomy and agency with your life at that point.
Yeah, and also it's this idea, I think productivity can definitely be a trap in that way of doing, obviously there's something to be said for doing things for survival that like allow you to thrive in other ways. For instance, if you have to like take on a certain job and then utilize whatever income and security you're gaining from that to like very strategically plan your next step or your transition, I think that's really wise.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's something to be said about like whether you're putting in the energy into the things that like you really care about and that actually are conducive to whatever that dream is. Like, yeah. So I think, do you want to, shall we go through sort of these like key facets, key tenets that have motivated us this year, have gotten us to this place we're in right now, and are propelling us into like in the near future what appears to be you know, quite a promising place.
Sure.
Okay, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
So, just like my factors that have like influenced me, or
Yeah, so we could take this in we could kind of take it in sort of like the freeform sense, or we could touch on some of these things that we have like that kind of relate to the existentialist perspective, but either or, whichever.
I mean, I think for me, I'm just at a point where I'm like, you know, I see my life kind of like on a timeline in front of me, and I'm like, I'm here at this age, and I know all these things that I don't want. So for me this year, I was focusing in on like, okay, what do you want? Because you've spent so long, like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. Like, this doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for me. So what do you want? And that's when like the really hard conversation happened with myself at the beginning of the year, where I was like, well, what I want is to like follow my own desires as like daydream and pipe dream or whatever as they may seem to other people. For me, they feel possible. So I have to go with that, because I don't want to hit a point in my life where, you know, I mean, it's never too late, but there are points in your life where it feels like it's too late. And I don't want to end up, you know, 10, 15 years from now and be like, oh, well, what if I signed up for the acting class? What if I started the podcast? You know, what if I sat down and I like wrote the prose or, you know, whatever. So that's really my motivations here.
Yeah. that definitely aligns with where I'm at too, obviously. I think one thing I've been sort of thinking about a lot lately is this idea of like authenticity and acting like
Like
as
authenticity to a
who you really
fault.
are, not just as like in alignment with whatever your past actions were, whatever sort of your upbringing, your environment, your genealogy, whatever that kind of dictates, is in stepping out of that into your own personal essence. And I think also one thing that is really, I think, I think it's just under sort of, or it's just unacknowledged, largely unacknowledged, despite a lot of these attempts in podcasting and in the broader cultural discourse to connect at a deeper level with other humans, is sort of this idea that like we're all getting older constantly. And I hate to be somebody that's always talking about aging, like old age, but we are, that's a fact. And I think we're so attached to like our appearance and all these other things, which do matter. Like taking care of yourself and being happy with your physical body matters, but it's like early on now in our 20s, creating the base and creating the ability to remain happy with ourselves and
Yeah.
see our life as a progression, like a beautiful progression into even like advanced stages, as opposed to a decline, and like doing what we have to do now to like set that up so that that regret doesn't sink in that you mentioned, but also so that these forces of comparison and this emphasis of youth and this emphasis on sort of this like highly disposable culture,
Yeah.
so that that doesn't have a hold on us later, because already now our generation has such a difficult time with mental health struggles that if we continue to focus on these things, then it's only going to worsen in the future. And so that's something that I think about even with career wise, with like how I take care of myself, present myself, you know, flexibly incorporate wellness into my life, but also how we engage socially, how we date. I think a lot of people date like they're immortal.
Yeah.
In this disposable culture where it's like, oh yeah, hook up with people, but don't actually connect with people. And it's like, what are you here to do? Like, we're here to connect with people, and people are so scared to do it because
Yeah.
they're so
And I mean,
scared of
like, there's nothing
themselves.
wrong with like a quick fuck, but I
Well,
mean,
no, but it's
when
like,
it's like just becoming, to the point where other people are getting hurt because that's like the only way you approach it.
well, and also it's approaching those moments that are maybe more casual or fleeting with a great sense of alignment and mindfulness.
Yeah, and just being direct.
Well, like I'm going to connect with this person the best I possibly can in this moment. We are both totally on the same page about it. Okay, great. If that works for you, do it. But it's this thing of like constantly looking for validation and then not connecting deeply. And I've gotten to a point, I think, within all of that too, where I'm just like sick of not connecting with people on a deep
Yeah.
level, and the whole like superficial dance we all kind of do.
Yeah. And adding on to that, I think along with my other motivations, goals that I've set for myself this year are like getting over like fear of failure, getting
Yeah.
over fear of rejection. I don't fail, I learn, we all know the like, sayings. But I'm like, even if I'm like the worst actor ever, even if my podcast tanks, even if my, whatever I'm trying, even if it's just like turns out horribly, I at least can know I did what I wanted to try. I've learned from it. I don't have to live with the regret. And if I want to try it again, I've got a leg up.
Yeah, and I think that that also engages the sense of like maintaining a closeness to whatever work you do, like as if whether we consider that our podcast, acting, writing, other things that we may create, um, that it's like, okay, I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this for me. I'm giving it this very authentic essence of myself in this moment. So you can't question that. But then also like maintaining a sense of detachment so that one so that you feel, I guess, and this is difficult to achieve, but it's sort of this feeling of like, okay, I did the work that I was called to do. I released it, and now
It is what it
it is
is.
what it is, and what's meant to be is meant to be, but I know that this is meant to be in the world,
Yeah,
existing as what it is because you were called to create it for whatever reason. So that, I think that's beautiful.
for sure.
I think other things. We discussed a little bit like reframing the absurdity of existence, and I think it kind of depends what kind of person you are. There are people that love to kind of bask in the pessimism around the brevity of life, immortality, all these things, blah blah blah, and and people like embrace atheism as their religion in that way. Nothing wrong with that. That's like a personal thing. But I think too, what I've personally chosen for myself is just to maintain more of like a spirituality and a sense of like.
And I think that's another thing we really connected over to.
Yeah.
We're both like heavy subscribers to law of attraction, karma, manifestation, all those types of things.
Yeah,
Those, like,
well, I just think that I just feel so open to the unknowns.
I do
And
too.
I love talking to people that are like spiritual and hopeful and believe in those kind of things. I don't know, I like it.
Yeah, and I feel like you can learn something from everyone you meet. Like, I love learning things. I love learning new things, even though, like, it just feeds my, like, pseudo-intellectual, like, kind of, I guess, persona I have adopted in recent years, as opposed to, like, the himbo, whatever.
I mean, you balance both.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a balance. Well, guys, we were gonna try to, like, have a phone-in guest in the form of a psychic. She was going to clear some negative interpersonal energy that Chloe has. Unfortunately, her phone number is not listed. You have to go to her house.
No, we're going to track her down. I know.
Yeah, we're going to just like show up at her house
after because what happened is when I saw her, I was at 9 Orchard. It was a beautiful rainy morning. And I had walked from.
And that's Lower East Side, right? Oh my God, we didn't even say in our introduction. This is based in New York City, if that matters to anyone.
Yeah, come stalk us.
Yeah, come take pictures of me on the street. I need that.
No, but it was just such like a beautiful spring morning. I hadn't experienced a morning like that here in almost 2 years now. And it was just so beautiful. It wasn't really raining, but it was just like nice and breezy, and it's where it gets so cute in like that Nolita area, Soho area, and like I was just walking back from 9 Orchard in the morning and having this like little moment with myself. I was playing I'd Rather Go Blind and I was just walking. It was beautiful. I got my Cafe Integral Horchata Almond Milk Latte, which I found out about on Esther Pavitsky's My Pleasure podcast, and I'm so obsessed with that because it's like Esther. The best house-made nut milk in the city, I think. And then I'm walking, I go to Butcher's Daughter, and I get the egg sandwich, which I think Butcher's Daughter is like overhyped, but I think that croissant egg sandwich is really good.
It's been recommended to me, but I've not been.
But I was just I was sitting at the bar. I was people watching. I was drinking a lemon tea. I was, and then I go walking and I see this sign for $5 psychic. I've never been to a psychic before, but I thought, I'm here to have a little experience this morning. I may as well go. Yeah. And so I go and she like, and I was intrigued by it because I was like, who is this woman? I think it looked like she lived there. And she was an old Russian lady, and it was just like, what circumstances brought her
to create say outside like $5 psychic readings?
Yes, it did. And so if I backtrack those steps, we can find her. Yeah. And she told me to call her, then I lost her business card. But I had all these like thoughts about, okay, like what brings this woman into this circumstance of like doing this, because she was older, and like I was like, this is so intriguing. And she told me that I'm going to be very successful in life, and that I have some like dark negative past patterns to clear up.
I think it's interesting when we filmed the second pilot, I had just seen a psychic, and we talked about my psychic experience on our second pilot that we shot.
We need to see each other's psychics, and then
we need to go see each other, because mine read me like a book. Like, shout out to him. I loved him, and he told me a lot of things that I really needed and wanted to hear. And I believe in it. He knew nothing about me other than my first name and the fact that I had $80 in cash.
Well, you know what I fucking love?
My psychic was a lot more expensive than your psychic.
Yeah, no, in mine she did a good little reading for just the $5. And I think that what's beautiful about that sort of a thing is like what the amount of stock you put into that is, it depends on the individual. But
well, I mean, I think
it's a beautiful thing to just like talk to a human being.
I think
the way that seen in that way.
The way that like, I see it is like they're presenting possibility to you. Like they're maybe gonna suggest something you hadn't thought of. Like I do, I mean, my psychic said he thinks I'm psychic. I don't know. But I think that they're presenting you with possibilities. Like mine was like, you were already supposed to be famous. He didn't know that I wanted to be famous. He told me, like, told me out of nowhere. He's like, you were already supposed to be famous. And I'm like, bitch, I know, like, you're preaching to the choir. I've always been famous. It's just no one knew it yet.
Yeah.
Do you want to segue into our next
I'm just topic? Seeing if we have any little things. I mean, I think what's healthy too about the psychic thing, I will say, is like, I think that people utilize social media as this like phenomenological experience to be seen.
Yeah.
And if we have a support team, aka psychic, that is doing that for us, maybe we can avoid turning to social media for that purpose and just use it to like spread the message associated with this podcast. That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think really our key tenet is just fostering these like deep, compassionate connections with people around us, because I think too, a lot of times with internet trolls, with texting communication, with all of these other things in our lives, it's so easy to get into disagreements and fight with people and whatever. And then when you sit down in person and you talk to somebody, usually you end up just seeing the similarities and like getting along with them on some level. So that's really important. And just like seeing humanity for its sameness, despite like this priceless rarity that we have as individuals. So we're like really self-aware pick-me's basically. And what else? We have our other little quotes of the day before we get into some little cultural notes before we wrap up.
Yeah.
And one is look for what you notice but no one else sees. And that's a really big, another like creative act quote, because that was my 2024 book. But we see that as actually a motivation for the interviews that we have coming. Yeah. Like we really want to get to the heart of people's emotional life and also bear what we have to bear to get to that place with other people. So it's not just like, oh, you're coming on our podcast and you're being exposed, but you're coming on. No,
this is going to be like the Drew Barrymore show.
You're coming,
we're going to be like,
you're coming on,
huddled together on the couch,
and you're doing this with us, and we're going to get to the heart of an internal life together, and have that with our guests. So that's our goal. And then also, going back to sort of this wondrous unknown of existence and focusing more on like the beauty of that than the fear. The magic is not in the analyzing or the understanding. The magic lives in the wonder of what we do not know. So I think that it's so easy to, become so fearful, become so depressed in that. And it's really like a muscle trying to maintain that positivity around that. But we've seen great results with that so far, and we want to keep that going.
Okay, so first we're going to talk about Lana Del Rey's Coachella performance. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. She comes in on a motorcycle. Jealous Girl remix is playing. She looks phenomenal. She's wearing like bespoke Dolce & Gabbana. She goes up on the stage. She opens with a deep cut from her like debut album. I mean, not that but like I love that song. She brought Billie Eilish on stage. She had John Batiste on stage. She had Jack Antonoff on stage. She did like a phenomenal collection of her songs. She just killed it. She was pole dancing at one point. She was singing on the piano. She had great backup dancers. Like she just blew it out of the water. Rolling Stone said that Coachella performance cemented her as a cult icon, and I could not agree more. And to her fans saying, oh, we're so back because she lost weight again. Fuck all of you. Fuck all of you. Next, Elon Musk wants to start charging new Twitter users a fee. when they open
Wait,
their
what?
account. Yes, he wants to start charging them a fee.
Nobody can call it X. Nobody can go along with
call
any
it
of
X.
this.
I refuse to call it X. That's stupid. But he is like wanting to charge people a fee, and he's like, it's to prevent bots. Like, no, it's not. It's not to prevent bots. It's to line your pockets. Freaking like, he's ruining Twitter. Also, Courtney Love did an interview yesterday. It came out yesterday, and she was like dragging all of like the main music people. She was like shitting on Lana Del Rey. She was shitting on Taylor Swift. She was shitting on Beyonce.
Wait, I kind of am. And I'm kind of into that. Like, not that I really have a desire to shit on them, but just like that she has the audacity to go out and be like, guys, is this mainstream music that we all love actually as good as we think it is, or is it
my question
contagion?
for her is, I'm like, Courtney, how much of it is jealousy because you've never been more irrelevant? The only reason anyone's reading your interview is because you were talking about everyone else.
Oh, that's a good point as well.
So yeah, Courtney Love, I really wanted to like you, Courtney Love, but you just can't come after everyone like that.
Well, it's one thing. I think it's one thing to like come after their
She's
music.
not a girl's girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is like, okay, if you don't want to like their music, if you want to question like, is this mainstream pop fodder actually as good as we feel it is? And you question that, okay, go for it.
The crazy thing is like,
but you
she's
can't deny
praised. She's praised them all in the past.
Oh, that's
she
weird.
literally 2 years ago said that the only two musical geniuses she's ever known were Kurt Cobain and Lana Del Rey.
That's so
and there's
weird.
like so many pictures of her hanging out with Taylor Swift, and like it's like she obviously, this is like a PR stunt for her.
Yeah.
She's like, let me just go look like a bitch and everyone will pay attention to me for 5 minutes even if it's negative. And she's like talking about like, I had to stop listening to Lana's music because it was inspiring me too much in my own. I'm like, since when do you make music? Like on like Courtney Love is a different generation than me, but I'm like, I don't think anyone listens to her music. I think she opened for Lana Del Rey at one point too. I'm like, that's your former employer you're talking about.
Yeah, the Lana hate is like a little unwarranted.
I take it personal.
But also, if she had framed it as like she's speaking out against Taylor Swift, and I mean, I feel like you can't group Lana Del Rey with like Taylor Swift because somehow Lana Del Rey has maintained that sense of like cult mystery that Taylor Swift completely lacks. Like there's kind of this overexposure of Taylor Swift where people get sick of like seeing her and hearing about her all the time.
Yeah. But I mean, I have to say I'm so biased. I like all these artists.
But if she had framed it as like, oh, these artists, I'm questioning them because I think that like FKA Twigs is rising above all of them, then I would be like, okay, I'm on board.
And transitioning into another music, there's just so much music news going on. I mean, there's like some film stuff too, but I feel like a lot of the big movies have already come out like before this. Like there's not any like other big ones coming out for a while. I think that when Maxine comes out, we should go watch it together and come talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm down.
Have you like seen the other movies in the X trilogy?
No.
Okay, well you're gonna like them, so
okay,
you need to watch them.
Okay.
But
yeah, no, I'm so out of it on Coachella too. The only thing I saw on Coachella that I was like, oh, because I feel like over the years it used to be such a big thing.
It's become
like
just like a
Coachella.
cesspool of influencers.
Yeah, and also I saw on it, I saw Brittany Howard was there, who's from Alabama Shakes, and I love her. And
Kesha
I was just
had
like,
a good
I was like, oh, Brittany Howard is there. Probably no one else cares.
I can't think of who Brittany Howard is right now.
I love her.
I feel like I might know.
Well, she was from, remember like Alabama Shakes, that band? It was like kind of like a bluesy soul. Oh. And they had the song "Don't Want to Fight."
I might know it if I heard it.
You would know, but her solo albums are so good.
Well, so Jojo Siwa released her new song, Karma, and we've talked about.
Wait, Jojo. Are you in a place to do?
We'll see. So we talked about JoJo in some episodes that aren't out yet that will potentially be out in the future. We've recorded a lot. We don't know what we're putting out yet. This will. We said that about the first two, but you know. Yeah. So JoJo puts out her song Karma. And she like is getting dragged for it. People are like, God, the auto-tune, like all this and that. And it comes out that this is like a scrap Miley Cyrus song. Like Miley didn't want it back in like 2010, and this girl named Britt Smith recorded it and did a music video for it and everything. Like she did whole 9 yards. This was going to be her debut single, it got scrapped at the last minute for some song she ended up doing with will.i.am that didn't take off. So JoJo's rebrand is essentially flopping so hard that she's launched Britt Smith's music career, because Britt Smith's version got leaked and was all over the internet, and now Britt put hers out on streaming, and Britt's version is like out charting JoJo's version. Like, could you imagine? I'd just like crawl in a hole.
I mean, JoJo's interesting. I don't know why suddenly all this like buzz around her has surfaced.
Well, I mean, it's like it's because she's
it's just
like
the shock value, I guess.
It's like contrived, you know, like she wants it. Like she's putting herself out there in this way for this attention, and it's like she's not even getting enough hate streams to outdo the old version. And I have to say, I like the old version better. Britt Smith, like, I'm rooting for you. Britt Smith really looked at Jojo Siwa and was like, karma's a bitch. No pun intended.
And now everyone has like beef with her.
I know, but JoJo just went on Call Her Daddy.
I saw. Chloe
and I, mainly me, but I've like forced it on Chloe. This like,
It's
I'm
Jojo
watching
Siwa.
JoJo Siwa's every move. I just can't get enough. Like, it's like a bad car accident I can't look away from every time I see something that she's doing or something she's saying. And it's just like, it's incredible. Like, honestly, like I hope she can get enough success to stay in the spotlight, because I'm entertained either way.
Yeah, and her podcast.
Have you
listened to it?
I've not listened to her podcast either.
I don't know anything about it besides that she wants her exes on it. Yeah. You know,
I did that in like the other one though, like the other one that we're gonna put out though.
Oh right.
I had like a variation of it. I couldn't get it all the way out, and I don't think I can today either.
No, not under. I need to be like stealth recording you next time you just do it.
I know.
It was so good, you guys. He does like a Donald Trump impression,
and a
Jojo Siwa impression in the same bit, and it's funny.
Yeah, because I think that's who should go on her podcast. I think they have a lot in common.
All right, you guys. Well, we are going to wrap up here, and I want to give a little tip, a little spring self-care, a little something to take with you as we end this little pilot. And I would say one thing is kind of just to ask the question of like what you have to do, what work you have to do with yourself to invite whatever experience of living that you want. We go from JoJo Siwa to reevaluate your routines. Have they been serving you? Have you been deviating from them? And also, I think like getting back into movement in the sense of prioritizing the functional health of your body over stress is really important. Like I had found for a few days, I was just working nonstop on stuff, had not really taken the time to do a good workout and think about my nutrition and all these things. And then I thought, wait, my body, like if I go on like this, like my body is gonna, not that I do this regularly, usually I'm pretty good about it, but I'm like, oh shit, like my body would actually break down, and like, I don't know, I can't keep always, I'm not gonna be able to go on like this forever. And like, so I had to pause in that moment and think, okay, actually the sort of little things that seem mundane, that seem like luxuries, they're actually quite important. And then another thing is just to pick back up the reading schedule. I sent Jackson a really emo poetry recommendation that I loved for years, and it's the book Crush by Richard Seiken. It's just really beautiful things about kind of when his partner was dying of AIDS, but it's just like a lot of like really beautiful surreal analogies in that book, and the poems are great. If you feel like you need a little breakthrough, a little something to make you feel a certain way, definitely that is a good one. And yeah, do you have any, Jackson?
Spring self-care.
Yeah.
Wear sunscreen, drink water.
That's true.
Take your Zyrtec if you're like me. Like I sound horrible right now because I need to take Zyrtec. What else? I think that's it. So hopefully no one has too much emotional whiplash from going to intros to existentialism to Jojo Siwa back to self-care.
Yeah.
So
we provide a little bit of everything, but that's also so true. Like behind anything light and comedic is this, and we feel like we had to start in earnest with this sort of mission statement so that now we can go forth with this other kind of lighter fare that we have planned.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone, thank you for listening, watching, however you're getting this, bootlegging it, I don't care.
Yeah.
So we will see you in the next one.
All right.
Bye.
Until next time. Bye.
And like making myself get on stage because honestly, like I wanted that attention. I needed that applause.